My name is Eve Dubose. Today's office hours is on the new Lockbox Toolkit. On our agenda, we are literally going to go through everything you need to know about using the Lockbox Toolkit. As we go along, you'll realize some of these things are quite familiar. If you're a Pro or IQ user, things will start to look familiar because they're things you were able to do before in Pro or IQ. And our agenda, we're going to go over the standard Lockbox format. We're going to go over enabling, disabling the Lockbox Toolkit, importing Lockbox files, reviewing, editing and checking for invalid transactions, deleting batches, creating unposted batches, reviewing the reports, and posting, and of course, history. So we're basically going to go over everything there is to know about the Lockbox. So what you're going to need to use the Lockbox Toolkit, and these are things not that you need for our webinar, of course, but if you're along with us on maybe a second computer and you're going to use the Lockbox Toolkit while we discuss it, absolutely what you're going to need is a Lockbox file from your bank, so a regular Lockbox file. You'll need to know what format the file is in, so which bank it's coming from. So if it's not from any of the banks that we have partnership with, it would be a regular standard TOPS default. And number three, the Lockbox Toolkit will need to be enabled. And we'll go over how to do that as well. So don't worry if that's not done. And let's get down to the how-to. So this on screen is an example Lockbox file, and it's also going to show the standard Lockbox format. As you can see, it's a simple text file. If any of you have a Lockbox file and you open it, if you ever wonder, it asks you what program to open it in, it's safe to open in Notepad. So if you're on a Windows computer, Notepad would be the thing. And then that would open up and show you this line sequence, this very simple line sequence here, the ZZZ. And I understand that ZZZ traditionally was in Pro and IQ, an unidentified community, and I didn't realize that till just this moment. But in this case, it really does identify a community in our TOPS 1, our sample community we're going to be using. And then it shows, of course, the sequence that would identify the homeowner, and in this case, we're using the account number, then the date, which is, if you look at it closely, you'll see a bunch of zeros, a 3, 9, and then a 19. That 19 indicates the year we're in, and then a 10 and a 17, which indicates today's date. So if you follow along on these sequences, it includes all blank spaces. So if you're trying to count the spaces, it does include blanks. After the date is the check number, which includes zeros getting up to that check number, and then the amount paid with no decimals. So this is an example standard Lockbox file. All right, let's talk about enabling and disabling the toolkit. First of all, you're going to go into AR and cash receipts, or AR accounts receivable to AR cash receipts in your TOPS 1, and that's going to be in your menu bar on the left. Then you're going to click into, which is under your portfolio. I apologize. First, you're going to go to portfolio and community and go into the proper community. Again, but then again, if you think about it, it really doesn't matter because a Lockbox is global, so it really doesn't matter what community you're in. Technically, you could just go to accounts receivable and cash receipts. And then on the right-hand side of the screen is going to be a setting that says Lockbox settings. And if it's not on, it would say use the new Lockbox Toolkit, and you would click the slider on, or if it was already on, you would see it in green, like the example at the bottom there. So that's going to be what you would see when you turn this on. I'm just trying to extend this a little bit so I can see everybody at the same time. There we go. So I'm going to go to the next page here. So once it's turned on, you'll get two choices, okay? You turn it on, it's going to say, yes, I want to try the Lockbox Toolkit, and that will enable the new feature. And it's kind of a funny yes screen. It has an image there, try the new Lockbox Toolkit, yes, I want to in blue. Or you could say no thanks and it wouldn't activate for now. Or if it was already on and you wanted to turn it off for some reason, you would just click the toggle under Lockbox settings to disable, and you would get a pop-up that says disable Lockbox Toolkit. So you can turn it on or off as needed, depending on the situation. All right, so once you turn it on, you're going to need to import a lockbox. We've turned it on. We're using the new Lockbox Toolkit. At this point, you're going to go into any community. Obviously, we discussed that before because it is a global function. You're going to go to accounts receivable and then cash receipts. And then in the cash receipts window, you have two choices. You can either click on cash receipts lockbox, which I apologize, the arrow is in the wrong place. It should be pointing at the second one circled in red, cash receipts lockbox, or you could go to actions and do lockbox review. These two places will take you to the cash receipts lockbox screen and now to the Lockbox Toolkit because that's what you're going to be using. So again, just click on that button for cash receipts lockbox or actions lockbox review. All right, you're going to get the import screen. Now the import screen is a small screen that pops up, and it is similar to exactly the same screen that popped up when the toolkit was not turned on. The way that you can tell the difference is when the Lockbox Toolkit is turned on, there's no longer a choice for a date. So on this screen as an example, you don't see the date. That's what you can know to look for. So if you open the screen and you see a date, your toolkit is not turned on. So from there, you're going to select the file format. The file format is going to show you a list of banks and then also the top default. If you don't recognize your bank from the list, you just choose default. It's no big deal. Then you're going to select your files to upload the lockbox from a location on your computer. So when you click select files, it's going to open up a window and says, okay, where's your lockbox file on your computer? Now, if you haven't pulled it off of a website or out of an email, you probably are going to want to do that first. You don't want to try to select files and then find it, you know, someplace that's not on your computer. It's usually a good idea to put it on your desktop or a folder on your computer that you're used to using for Lockbox. And then once you're successfully uploaded, so by simply clicking the file format and selecting the files and clicking it, it's going to automatically go to process that lockbox, and you should be redirected to the Lockbox import review page. So it should take you right where you need to go. There should be no questions asked. If it imports properly, this screen will disappear and this screen will populate. And this is the Lockbox import review screen. Okay, so on the Lockbox summary edit and review page, there's a lot going on here. You can make edits to payments before posting. You will see everything you need to know about this batch. First of all, the number of communities in the batch, that's at the top left in the summary. The batches, how many batches are sitting here? Because a batch will be created for every day payments were received from the bank. So if there's 1 day of batches or 4 day of batches, don't be surprised by that batch number. It's just saying that's how many different days payments were received. Then your transactions, the number of total payments in import file. So that's number of transactions. That's how many payments are in this file. So that's how many payments you should be seeing. And all the time while you're on this review screen with the summary, you should be comparing that to your file from the bank. So your bank usually will send you a report along with your Lockbox file. You should be seeing the exact same numbers on that report. Then you have valid transactions. Now, normally the valid transactions will match the number of transactions. Those numbers should be the same. But if they're not, you'll look to the last option on the right, the invalid transactions. These are transactions that did not match a homeowner. So you're going to just look at that summary, see all those items. If there's no invalid and it looks good to you, you are more than welcome to continue on. But you also have the option to make edits to any of the payments before posting on the screen. So make sure you have the opportunity to look down in the second part for the open batch. And as you can see, we only have one community open here, but if you had multiple communities, you would see multiple communities, similar to the way that you go in and post batches. You have a line for each community, and you can click on the gray bar and it will open up. So very similar to what you're used to when posting batches with manual cash receipts, or posting batches when you were previously posting through the old Lockbox system in Top 1. So either way works. But here, as you can see, absolutely you could edit that owner. If you are looking at it and you're looking at the check number and it's found the wrong owner for some reason, or maybe it's supposed to go to the renter and not the owner, you can absolutely delete this and put the correct one in. Now let's talk about invalid transactions. There's no way you can miss them. I mean, I'm sure there's a way, but batches will show that little exclamation mark symbol in red. Red usually means look for what's going on. So that little exclamation mark symbol will be, it has to be corrected before you can upload the file. So if you have an invalid transaction, you will need to correct that by simply clicking on the line item with the invalid transaction and then correcting the owner. So some of the things that would cause an invalid transaction is the community is not found. And community not found usually means that the Lockbox ID in the file is not in Top 1. So the Lockbox ID, this is similar to an issue that happened in Pro and IQ. If you had that ZZZ community not found, it usually meant that you needed to go and make sure that, first of all, the Lockbox ID in the lockbox matches the Lockbox ID in the bank. And so you could manually enter the community name to fix this, or the owner, the property or account number, whatever it is that's missing, you can go ahead and fix that in the transaction. The other issue is owner not found. Sometimes an account number in the file was not found. Sometimes the account number is missing a number, or who knows what happened. But you can also manually fix that by clicking on the transaction. Now, if you have these things happen, absolutely let your bank know. You don't want to just live with fixing them. The reason they're there is because the file that the bank has provided you is missing a number or has incorrect information perhaps. You will want to review all of that with your bank representative. Let them know, hey, just to let you know, I got a Lockbox file, and when I processed it, it had an incorrect account number, or it had incorrect this or that. And they may ask you to provide another validation file. You absolutely can do that, give them an updated validation file, and that should nip it in the bud. But just letting you know, don't let these things go. Make sure you follow them through and talk to your bank, get a new validation file, or talk to your TOPS representative, and we'll get you straightened out. All right, let's talk about editing that Lockbox file. So you're going to select that batch by clicking that gray bar, and it's going to open up. And you have the opportunity to update the owner listed. You just have to click the X next to the owner there, or you can edit any of the options there, the check number, the date, the account number, and of course they have to be valid. The system has to identify them, but then you can click Save, and that will save your changes. So you can edit anything in the Lockbox prior to printing, or sorry, prior to posting. You can also delete a payment from the batch. So for whatever reason, just a for instance, maybe someone made a payment and the bank put it in there, and then it turns out that it's showing the wrong person or community, or maybe that person's check account was closed and they've called you and told you in between the time that you've received the Lockbox. You can delete any payment from the batch that you need to. So for life happens, you do have the ability to delete the payment. You would just select the batch to click to edit, and then click the little garbage can button next to the delete payment, and then click confirm by save. Now, when you delete, there is no undelete. That's something that I like to bring up. Those little garbage can buttons are so convenient. There is no undo. So if you delete it and it needs to really be in that lockbox, the best way to get it back in is to do it by hand. Do a manual cash receipt to put it back into the system. You can't get it back into the lockbox, but you can enter it by hand with a manual cash receipt. But once you remove it, you'll get that pop-up that says, are you sure you want to remove this transaction? You say yes, remove, and it's gone. The rest of the batch will remain there. All right. When you go to post, you're going to need to know about selecting batches. So batches with the negative gray bar next to the community name will not be processed or included in the Lockbox preview report. Communities with the green checkbox will be processed. So this is something you'll be familiar with when you're posting your cash receipts. Those batches, you do have the opportunity to click those gray bars or green checkboxes and turn them on or off for the posting selection. Obviously, the negative gray bar is not going to post and not going to be included, and the green checkbox is. So you would go through and select what you want to do, what you want to process or post or what have you. You can also create an unposted batch, and that will save the lockbox batches in the process deposits page for a later time. And an unposted batch is not yet applied to accounts and needs to be posted to reflect on the owner's ledger. Unposted cash receipts is something that you're familiar with. If you're from Pro and IQ, there was the unposted deposit report that you could do. You could unpost the lockboxes. So unposted just simply saves it for later posting. It does not hit the owner's account. And you would just click the create unposted, and that will redirect you to the process deposits page. So also prior to posting, you may want to print a report, and it's going to be your Lockbox preview report. And remember, only communities you've selected with the green checkbox in the select process will allow you to see these on the Lockbox preview report. Just below the post and deposit button is that print button. You can print that Lockbox preview report, see what's about to post. You may want it anyways, just for keeping purposes. And when you hit print, I do believe it gives you the option to save under a PDF or actually print to printer. So if you're going green and you don't want to use all that paper, you can just print to a PDF. Now let's talk about posting. So when you're going to post a lockbox, you would just simply hit post and deposit. I think that's very simple to understand. There's not another step to it. You're simply posting. It's the final step in posting that lockbox. So when you go to post, you're saying, I've absolutely checked all these. Everything is valid. I'm ready to go. I've printed if I need to. I've posted. And post is the end. However, with TOPS 1, let me remind you, there's no fear. No fear in posting anymore. If you post it and later realize that it was incorrect, you just simply delete it from the community as a batch. No many steps, no difficult, worrying about the GL versus the AR. You simply delete it. So if you're posting, you can post without fear. That's something that wasn't available in Pro and IQ. When you posted, there was a lot to undo because you couldn't just simply delete a batch and take it out of the AR and the GL. And because it's a cash receipt, it's going to the check reconciliation. It's going to go on your bank reconciliation because you're posting to a bank. So there's none of that when you post that you have to worry about. You can simply post, and if it's incorrect, hit that delete, and I think that's really nice. Once you post it, you get that review posted cash receipts page will open, and you have the choice to print that page. And as you can see, I don't know if you can see it, it's very tiny, just above the red arrow where it says print, delete cash receipt, and that will delete the batch. You could delete it today, or in a week from now if you realized it was incorrect, you could delete it. Or maybe you posted it twice and you could delete that secondary posting. Or maybe in a month from now when you're reconciling, you realized it was posted twice. You could still go back and delete one of them. No fear. I love it. I love that Tops One does that. I love that it lets you delete things without a problem in accounts receivable. So I'm going to move on here. We've printed and we've posted. The next thing we want to talk about is view imported lockbox history. So in that screen next to the post and deposit, if you're not sure if it has been posted before, or you want to know how many posts you've had before, you do have that view history, and that will view a log of all imported files, their names, and a brief summary about the transactions in the file. So it's going to show you the file name, the date, the communities, the transactions, and which ones were invalid in that lockbox file. So that view history screen is an easy way to just jump in there and see if it's done before. But again, you can see if it posted twice. If it did, you just simply go delete that secondary one. It's not a problem. So let's talk about something that doesn't have everything to do with the Lockbox Toolkit, but something that's very much something to be aware of when using Tops. Pop-up blockers. When using the toolkit, different windows will pop up, different tabs will pop up, things will pop up in there. If your toolkit's not working, or your reports are not popping up on screen, or you feel like you're not seeing all these screens, look to see if you have a pop-up blocker that is turned on in Chrome or any browser that you're using. So when printing a report for multiple communities, obviously the multiple communities, when you hit post, it's going to open up a page for every community. It's not going to put those together. It's going to put a report for every community, and that's what you should want, is a separate community report, so it keeps everything community specific. And it does, but if you're not seeing that, look for that pop-up blocker. It's usually going to be in your address bar. There's a couple places you're going to see it. At the top right, you can see the red arrows pointing at that little, it looks like a little window with a red something on it. That's going to indicate something you're going to need to look at. So go ahead and click that. The pop-up blocked will populate, and you can select always allow pop-ups and redirects from, and then whatever it is if you're in Top. So in the address bar, click the pop-up blocked icon, look for the links that you want to see, and then say always see pop-ups for this site. Always allow pop-ups and redirects from the site that you're in, which is Tops. Well, this on the example says localhost, but in yours it should say something like Tops1 or 1.topsoft.com, and then you'll click done. If you are having trouble with your pop-ups and you want assistance, you can talk to your Tops representative. All of us can help you with that if it does become something that you're unable to resolve on your own. Now, if we're unable to resolve it, we may need your assistance of your on-site technician or IT department, but usually we can solve it for you. So I know that was a quick one, but now what I'm going to do is actually go through the process live. And I know it says thank you for joining us, but this is not the end. I'm going to go over the process live of receiving a lockbox for you and showing it to you. All the while, if you have questions, don't forget to put them in the chat or the question section. And at the end, if I have time, I will address those questions. And also, if nobody has time to get to it today, we can email you and discuss it with you. So I'm going to actually exit out of my office hours, and I'm going to open up my version of Tops1, and we'll go over the lockbox So I'm just going to exit this and minimize it and go into my version of TOPS here. So here we are. Actually, let me start from the beginning. So here I'm on the TOPS 1 login screen. I'm in my Eve TOPS 1 training software version. I get my own to play around with. First of all, I'm going to go into a community, communities. Look at me getting crazy, clicking around. Go into communities, and I'm going to select the community that I want to do. I'm going to go into my ZZ sample webinar community. Now, again, it's not necessary to go into the community that you know the lockbox contains because it is a global function. I'm just going in here because I know that I have items in that lockbox from the ZZZ. So it doesn't really matter, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. So I'm going to go into accounts receivable here on the left, and then from the drop down, cash receipts. And then when I get into my cash receipts window, I'm going to say, you know what, I'd like to use that toolkit. Over here on the right, you can see lockbox settings, use the new toolkit. And next to that has a little blurb that you can click on. And it will show me a video about it. It will also show me the how-to, step-by-step with the toolkit and how to enable it. And if you click on this Lockbox Toolkit, it will populate our knowledge base articles with the video. And if you scroll down every one of those steps on the toolkit, there's nothing you won't be told in that section for the most part. All right, so I'm going to turn it on. Use the new Lockbox Toolkit. We're turning it on, and there's my pop-up. It's going to say, here it is. Do you want to use it? Yes, I want to try the Lockbox Toolkit. So I'm turning it on. Now that I've turned it on, my toggle over here is green. It knows I want to use it. So now I'm going to click on the button right here, Cash Receipts Lockbox. Now you don't have to. You could go to Actions and Lockbox Review, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to click on Cash Receipts Lockbox, the button right here. Whoops, looks like I was playing with it before. Okay, so take two. Cash Receipts Lockbox. All right, so here is my Cash Receipts Lockbox file. The first thing I'm going to do is choose my file format. Now here's where you see the different choices for banks. Where did your lockbox come from? Is it an Alliance Association bank? Is it a dues payment, Mutual of Omaha, which is a community association bank, CAB, some of you call it, Paylease, or Popular Bank, Banco Popular. So which one is it here? And if it's none of these, it's default. So no fear, if you don't see your bank, just choose default. Then you're going to select your file, and it's going to pop up and say, hey, where is your file? And you're going to find that lockbox. So I've got a test one here, and I'm going to receive it. It's going to be quick. It's going to say, oh, okay, I found everything I need. Here we are. It takes you straight to your review screen. And here it is in my summary. I have one community in there, one batch, which means everything was processed in one batch, 2 transactions, 2 are valid, 0 are invalid. Now, I wish I had an invalid one to show you, but I don't. So we'll just have to go with it. So here it is, my ZZ sample community. I can click the gray bar and open it up and actually see those 2 transactions. So I've got checks from Albert Einstein and Jenny Craig. Great people, great little payers. ZZ sample community. Again, ZZZ for me is an actual community, so don't be confused by the fact that that used to mean invalid transactions. I apologize, I didn't think about that till the last minute. So up here it shows Lockbox Bank batch total $500. So it's telling me in both of these checks there is $500 total. There's 2 transactions. Now if I didn't want to post this, I could uncheck it, but I do want to check it. Now these 2 are the ones, but if I said, you know what, Jenny shouldn't get this check, her renter should, I could just simply X out of that. It makes it invalid then because we've taken her name out, and then we just put back in who it is. And of course, I'm just going to put it back to Jenny Craig. I'm not going to change that, but it's going to go ahead and assign it to whoever, and then I'm going to click Save again, and that's going to save it. And now there's no more red. It's no longer invalid. So basically you can do whatever you need to do in here. Change dates if you need to, if you decide that you don't like those dates. And then make sure you hit save after you've done everything you need to and the batch is closed. Now, when I'm ready to complete my transaction, I can either print with the print button, and it gives me that Lockbox preview report. Here it is. Very nice. You could print it or download it. Or you could view history. Let's see if I have anything in my history. So I've played around with a couple of test lockboxes, and you can see that history, and then we're going to hit cancel. Takes us back to our review screen. At this point, you could import more files. I'm going to say no because I don't want to lose that. You can clear out what you have. Now, if you've imported a lockbox and you need to delete it, some people may say, well, how do I get it out of here? If you cannot, which I don't think you could just simply delete from the lockbox screen, the way to delete a batch for a community, an unposted batch for a community, is from the community home screen. So I'll just show you that really quick. We have plenty of time. Apparently, I'm just talking like a rocket, but here from our community home screen, I'll go into our sample webinar community. And this, of course, is going to depend on your permissions. If you have a unposted batch and you need to delete it, you can come into your activity feed screen on the community home screen. So I'm on the community home screen in the activity feed. I see the date. Here it is right here. Oh, no, that's security deposit. Where's the one for 2018? Let's do the dates that we're in. For today's date, we'll just break it down to that. Apply. Oh, you know why? Because it's not unposted. I can make an unposted batch and then it will show in there. Well, regardless, if you do have something in here that you have a pending batch and you need to delete it, you can simply come in here and go to Actions, remove transactions from the community homepage, and then from this list, find that unposted batch. And remember, it needs to be in green. If it's in green, that shows it's not posted. Or even if it is posted, you can hit delete. But remember, there is no undelete. All right, coming back. All right, let's see. If a payment is made and it needs to be split and applied to a different charge, will you be able to post that? So I think that was pretty much answered in the last one. If a payment is made, it goes to whatever the code distribution is set to for Lockbox. You could then do a pay adjust. We have our payment adjustment section here in the accounts receivable cash receipts, where you can go in and actually find a payment and edit that cash receipt once it's been posted and post it where it needs to go. Let's see. For the code distribution, can you make changes for all associations at once? And currently, no, you cannot. Code distributions are community specific. So when you go into the codes for that community, you could go into code distribution and make that change. Now, you should be able to stay on the code distribution screen and simply change communities and now be in that code distribution. So while you do have to do it from that window, from that individual community, you could then simply switch communities very easily and change those code distributions. And again, remember, you're looking to work from Lockbox. Something I do like to mention about the code distributions for Lockbox. Hold on, let me get down to the Lockbox part. So in the Lockbox, in the default, I don't like to suggest that you delete anything because default really needs to pay for everything at some point. But in the Lockbox distribution, if there's something about the Lockbox you absolutely don't want it to pay, like number one here is cart shed, and then transfer fee, and then property tax, you may not want it to pay those things. You can remove those items. So if you absolutely don't want your Lockboxes paying these things, you can remove them. And then all that it will pay is the things that you want it to, such as the assessment, the special assessment, any admin fees, anything that you want it to pay, and everything that you don't want it to pay will be removed. And then whatever's left over can go to this prepaid. And then you can change the prepaid and make it dedicated to whatever code that you want, such as an A1 or a C1. So you can change those code distributions so that it only pays the things you want it to in that lockbox. So this is actually a helpful hint from one of our viewers. If you leave the community with multiple distributions of payments deselected prior to posting and deposit, you can go back to the lockbox review and create an unposted so that you can process the deposit, process that community the old way. So that is a helpful hint. Thank you very much. So our viewer is saying that if you create that unposted, you can always go back and edit it at a later time. So that is very good. Thank you very much. Again, if any of you have a lockbox and you want assistance posting it the first time, you can absolutely contact your TOPS representative and they will assist you. And if you have questions later on, you can contact your TOPS representative. We can go over those questions. And I hope you have a great day.